Welcome to Country Club Live. I'm Walter and you're watching Country 3D, and today we're going to be talking with Karl from Knack 3D Designs, the designer, owner, and operator of the one and only, or the one of two White Knight belt printers. I think he made one for Midnight Giant first. So I guess we're going to get started with this by going, Karl, it's on you, buddy.
Hi, everybody. Hope y'all can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Karl. Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Karl with Knack 3D Designs, and that's the White Knight printer.
That was a hell of an intro, Karl. Well, listen. We're going to get to the White Knight, but that's not where we're going to begin. All right.
All right.
So we're gonna talk about Karl first. All right. We see the White Knight. And I guess you got OBS cam up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you got it up and running.
First time for everything.
No, we just won't try to fix it. We'll just deal with the delay and the lag. I probably have one now, too. I don't know if you can tell or not.
Oh, yeah, you definitely do now.
Yeah, see, I'm using OBS cam. Without OBS cam, no lag. With it, there's lag. All right. So we got you on the screen and only you, and that's the way it's going to be. They can look at your pretty face. I need to run down and say hello to everybody in the chat. Y'all know I don't really interact with the chat during our live streams. I need to say that. If you're not subscribed, please click that subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notified of when I'm talking to great folks like Karl. All right, Karl. So
still looking for who you're talking about, but okay.
Well, I'm talking to that silent bastard back there in the back.
Yeah. You don't know how tempting it was to put the helmet on to start the interview. I'm telling you.
I can imagine. Yes, Hardman, you're going to miss Pixel Walter. And believe you me, with Google Hangouts, I am very pixelated. Anyway, let's do this the right way. So first things first, Karl, you got into 3D printing when?
Let's see. It would have been December of 2016.
December of 2016, so a good seven months or so before I did.
Okay.
So, and you got started. How did you? I mean, really, what got you started though? Because I know that you went to Printed Solid and they worked with you or something to get you a printer. Is that right?
Yeah. At the time, I was working for Advanced Auto Parts, and I wish I had the model, but it's so delicate. It's up on a cabinet, and I don't touch it anymore. I had designed a 59 Cadillac Santa sled and took all these little engines and gave them a set of wheels and antlers and basically made 9 V8 blown engines and a sleigh as a Santa and his sleigh to go around our Christmas tree we did for our front window display at the store. The problem was it was made out of a plastic model at first, and we all know what happens when you put model glue in front of a window. In about a week, it breaks down, and then your model falls apart.
Hey, Karl, they're saying that you need to horizontally mirror your camera. And you can do that under Tools in OBS under Virtual Cam, I believe. You can flip it. There you go. Now we can all read White Knight. I think, did that fix it, Lester? Because White Knight was backwards. Sorry.
That's weird. In my view, it was backwards.
That's right.
Before.
And that's right. Everything in my view for me is backwards. Everything in your view is correct. It's got to be backwards for you so everybody else sees it correctly.
So we're looking at the back side of the camera?
Yeah, yes, that's exactly right. So, all right. So you got into 3D printing because of the models, right? So how did you find Printed Solid? I mean, what did you do? Did you just go say, okay, I need something to do. Let's go do it.
And I had seen little bits about 3D printing on the internet, everything. I said, man, if I printed this out of, one piece of plastic, then I wouldn't have to worry about it breaking down in the window and everything. So I started searching for 3D printers, and I was like, okay, I need more info on this, and tried to Google it. And as you know, if you Google 3D printers, you get about 1 million different printers, and you don't know. Everybody says theirs is the best. So I started Googling 3D printing in my area, and there actually used to be a place about 5 miles from where Printed Solid is now. They're near University of Delaware that had 3D printers, and I guess I guess it was something like a makerspace, but they were out to just sell stuff for the most part. But I was trying to find them, and then somehow accidentally stumbled across Printed Solid right after they opened in their new location. And I walked in there, got talking with Matt, and he even said it in the one video that they did when we released the White Knight. He honestly thought I was a tire kicker. So I came in there, was just drooling over the Ultimakers, and then he told me the price tag on an Ultimaker, and I was like, maybe I can't afford to get into 3D printing.
That dries up that drool real quick, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And but I kind of walked out of that day, and before I did, he's like, hey, you know, I've got this old Da Vinci printer I bought to do testing on and never got to it. It's just collecting dust in the store. If you're looking for just something to see if you like 3D printing, I'll sell you this one for $100. And I said, well, let me think about it. And I walked out and I got home. And about 30 minutes after I got home, I did some more searching and realized there was no way I was going to find a printer as big as that one for $100. And I'm like, well, if I suck at it, I only wasted $100. I called him up. I said, yeah, I'll be in first thing tomorrow to pick that thing up.
Cool, man. I actually thought of you the other day. I was on, because every now and again I'll get on Craigslist or whatever and search for 3D printer. Well, the only one that comes up within 200 miles of my house is in Gainesville, and it was a Da Vinci one for $300.
That was the first one I had.
Yeah, and they want $300 for it now, and I'm like, no.
So, I have 7 more, and I've never paid more than $200 for one.
You've never paid more than, you tell a lie. That one behind you cost a hell of a lot more than $200.
No, for a Da Vinci. For a Da Vinci. I've never paid more than two. I've got 7 more Da Vincis, and I've upgraded like 5 of them. I was building one for the video series. It's still not done.
Well, now you say you've never paid more than $200, but that's not true. The upgrades and the changes that you make cost more than $200.
Oh, definitely. But to buy one off of eBay or Craigslist, I never paid more than $200 for the initial printer.
I got you.
And then I probably put $300 or $400 more into it, making it where it's a usable, you know, decent print quality printer when I'm done with it. But
right. And the display of them that you had at Earth was fantastic, dude. I enjoyed that you had that display, even though I didn't come over and interview you, and you hurt your feelings.
Not that you were my neighbor and barely talked to me all weekend. You know, hey, you know,
man, run around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Had more time for the guy who wouldn't even answer your questions than you had for me. You know, that's okay.
You know what? He can't fuss at me either. But here's all right. So now you have a printer. Now, did you come back and you work on what you got the printer for, or did you go through a myriad of let's print some BS first?
For this?
No. We're back to you just got your printer from Printed Solid.
Let's see. Got the printer from Printed Solid. Got home, and yeah, first things I did was I printed. Because I didn't know anything about printing, so I everybody told me, I was like, where do I even get models from? And they were nice enough before I left. So yeah, check out Thingiverse and My Mini. He gave me a couple websites, and Thingiverse seemed easy. So I just started searching Thingiverse for random whatever trinkets. I think the first thing I printed was a wall hanging of Marvin the Martian. So I'm just like the black, you see through, you just hang it on the wall. It's like a ½ inch tall.
Right.
It was just big enough to fit on the print bed of the printer. So I'm like, well, let me try this and see how it does. And I literally had the thing sitting on my kitchen counter with my laptop next to it. And I'm trying to use their, Da Vinci's, proprietary Da Vinci ware. And you have to stay connected to the printer. And I'm sitting there doing stuff. And then I started playing with Microsoft 3D Builder. And I'm like, maybe I can make something to printer. So I start playing with stuff. I start building stuff. And I did something that Microsoft 3D Builder did not like. And I'm watching my print go. And I said fix or something. And my brand new laptop just went boom. And I watched that print go like this and just freeze in one spot and film it just keep oozing out the bottom. And I'm like, that can't be good. Right. I was afraid to touch anything. 20 minutes later, it started printing again. I was like, okay, do not create stuff in Microsoft 3D Builder while you're trying to print.
Well, without a computer that'll handle both jobs at the same time.
Yes. It definitely did not like that.
I understand that. So you started on Microsoft 3D Builder, and this was 2 years ago, give or take, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what all did you design before you started on the White Knight? I mean, you were working on DaVincis. Did you design pieces for those to help upgrade or anything of that nature?
Let's see. Yeah. I actually redesigned the carriage for the DaVinci Duo. And I made it to where you can take out their hot end carriage, which is about twice as wide as this. And this mounts an E3D Chimera hot end in its place.
Sweet.
And I did a few other little trinkets before I figured out how to do this, you know, a couple little brackets here and there. But then I started creating these, and then a friend of mine, it's one of my things on Thingiverse, he comes to me, he goes, dude, you're getting good with that stuff. He goes, I want a deck box for my Magic cards.
Okay.
I'm like, all right. And he found one that someone had made that would hold 75 plain cards, nice little folding book. And he goes, but I want it bigger than that. I want to be able to hold 100 cards so I can do a commander deck, and I want to be able to hold sleeved cards. Because it'd really be nice if I had a draw and discard section. And I want it to look really cool. And that was the criteria he gave me. And anybody goes out and looks at my Thingiverse and finds my Magic card box. I wish I had one here, but he literally has all of them, I think. It opens up. It's got a draw thing like you were at Vegas to slide the cards out of, and then it's got a place to toss it into, and it's got a little place to hold the dice. I even did one where I hid magnets in the spine and printed him a couple dice out of the Iron PLA. He loves going to card games, and he'll sit there and he'll toss his dice, and it just mesmerizes people how the dice will bounce off the box and land and stick in the same spot every time.
Right. So what experience with 3D design did you have before you got into 3D Builder and you started doing this for the DaVincis and for other folks? What led you to that? Did you have any artistic experience, any 3D design experience or anything?
Not really. The background, I grew up on a dairy farm. My uncle owned a machine shop, and well, that played heavily into designing and building that. Some of my favorite tools were bought at Harbor Freight. Did 20 years in the military, 15 of which doing computer network administration, the last 5 doing money. And then, like I said, I did 8 years working for Advanced Auto Parts. Nothing in there was ever really doing 3D design, CAD, any of that. That was something I'm like, well, let me see if I can even do this.
Cool. So, I mean, just watching YouTube or just picking it up and going, let's make a box and see what we got to do?
3D Builder, I literally just brought it up, and I think it has, like, the first time you open it, gives you a quick little tutorial. This is how you make a sphere, and this is how you drop a cylinder through it and subtract it. And after that I just played around with it till I figured it all out. And I think now I know every single feature you can possibly do with Microsoft 3D Builder.
Sweet, man. That's awesome. That's the way I like to learn myself. So
unfortunately, from what people have told me, I know people that say they've been playing with Fusion for like the last 7 years and they still don't know every feature it can do. I'm like, wow, Builder's really weak then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, now, do you have, because I'm sure that David and you guys at Printed Solid are going to get together when you're doing the kit. But do you have any plans of moving the White Knight over to Fusion?
Actually, I said all the files I published up on GitHub. So I said I was going to make it open source, and I made them. I shouldn't say I made the mistake, but it kind of was, because during Joel's interview, I said I wanted to move it to Fusion 360, and I want to learn Fusion 360, and the entire community out there saw it to rub it in my face that I was using 3D Builder, and oh my God, what could you have done with this thing had you been using Fusion? And they all immediately jumped on board and started, dude, how can I help you convert the files?
Right.
They are all, I got the email notice from 3D Gustner today that all the files have been converted to Fusion 360. I've been doing pull requests all week into the folder. Now, they're not public yet because I won't publish them public until I've had a chance to test, print, and fit all of them to make sure they're right and correct and no tweaks need to be made. Right. Once I've printed them out and tested them, then I'll go ahead and move them into the main GitHub folder. There's a Fusion 360 folder out there, but at the moment it's just empty because they're all in the development branch waiting to be tested.
Well, now I don't know who else has done it, but I know 3D Gustner's a pretty good guy. So
yeah, I wish I could remember the other names. I say 3D Gustner because he's the person I know from from your streams.
Right.
I want to say there's 4 or 5 more people out there that were definitely a part of it. I should probably pull it up and read off their names. But yeah, I would say like four or five, six people. I'm not sure how many it was, but a bunch of people jumped in and just like, I'll take this file, I'll take this file, and they converted 44 files in, what's today, Wednesday, so probably 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, it's probably not a big conversion issue if you bring it into 3D Builder and save it out as a step or something like that.
Well, that's the problem. You can't with 3D Builder. 3D Builder has two options: 3MF and STL. Neither one of which are very compatible with Fusion 360. And when you try to import one in, they call it doing BREP to step, and usually you end up with about 1 million triangles with my files, and it's about a nightmare to try and convert. I think a lot of them were just opening up the mesh, and I would imagine they were probably just building right over top of it, using it for scale and dimension, and then deleting it out when they were done.
I don't know. There's probably a tool chain somewhere that somebody's developed that will take a 3MF and turn it into a Fusion object. I don't even know what Fusion uses. So, but there's probably a process out there somewhere.
Yeah, clearly I don't know it yet.
So now my question is though, that display and stuff that you had at IRF of your DaVinci printers and them printing, that was a fantastic display to have at a show, man. I mean, is this so are you not going to bring them anymore now that you have this? I mean, are people not going to get to see those beautiful machines you've redone?
At some point, maybe I might bring the Frankenvinci back out or one of them. But honestly, for their size and their weight, with all the hype that I had for the White Knight this trip, it just seemed like that was all anybody was going to want to talk to and look at. I didn't have my own booth for Murph. I literally had planned on I'm going to share space with Midnight Giant, and there really wasn't room for my huge rack of DaVincis and 2 of these printers to boot.
No,
I get the feeling IRF, it's going to be still the main focus. Maybe next year, if I don't have anything new and great, I might bring them back out. Might just put a for sale sign on them when I bring them back out, but.
Yeah, we just tried to get wall tables for IRF. There are no more wall spaces.
Yeah, that's what I heard at the meetup this weekend, but I wasn't positive I heard right. So
yeah, no, right after Murph, we contacted Chris because we needed to get the Fun in the Country Basement one, and no dice. They are full. So I may not have a table at all. I may just show up and walk around and go, "Hey, everybody, how y'all doing?"
You didn't go for the first aisle like we had. I mean, because I thought the first aisle was the bronze ones were still open, weren't they?
They are, but it's $100 for a exhibitor table.
Yeah,
and I understand the cost, the need for it, but it's just kind of hard to bite the bullet when the one right behind it is $10.
Well, you're free to take the one right behind me. That keeps the glitter printer from ending up behind me again.
I know. We're going to make sure that the glitter printer is right behind Karl again this year.
I actually saw that kid at Murph, and I was like, hey, I want to say that glitter printer was awesome, but I'm looking around. I don't see it, and don't take this wrong, but I'm kind of glad you didn't bring it because I'm still finding glitter in my stuff from IRF, and he just started laughing.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so you've got your DaVinci. You're printing your stuff for your buddy. What makes it stick? What makes it stick for a guy like Karl to do 3D printing? What makes you want to continue? Because you've got how many DaVincis now?
8.
8.
Yeah, 8.
8 DaVincis. So and what other 3D printers do you have besides DaVincis?
I have a White Knight.
Well, no, I get that.
And this is what's funny. I joke all the time. I've never paid more than $100 for a printer from Printed Solid, because at their Black Friday sale this past year, they had a bunch of broken, condition unknown printers that they were clearancing out just to empty the shelves. And me and Neary's looked down on the sheet and saw CRXs, and both ran up to Dave as fast as we could and said, I'll take it. And Neary's beat me by 1 step to the first one, so I let him choose. Well, I think I got lucky he chose because he wanted one that wasn't assembled yet so that he could load it up in his car easier. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll take the assembled one. The glass plate was broken on it, and the carriage was bent a little bit. I took it home, put the carriage in the vise, straightened the carriage, and Casa de Huacos was nice enough to give me a piece of mirror for it. And that was all it took. It's printing. And I was like, yeah, I get a working CRX for $100 from them.
Heck yeah. That's what I'm talking about. See, and that's one problem that, and Glenn and I have talked about this several times, Fun King 3D, is that we don't have anything down here. There's nowhere we can go to talk to a 3D printing supplier or look at new models or anything else. There's nothing. The closest place to us is Atlanta, and that's a micro center. Okay. Yeah. And that from me, that's 5.5 hours. From Glenn, I think it's about 6. I mean, it takes us an hour to get to the interstate. So he can just run straight up 75. So it's a ways for us to get to anything, 3D printing related anyway. So you've got a CRX. Now is that the dual headed one, I think?
Yeah, that's the dual extruder single nozzle. So it's not a mixing nozzle. It's got to retract back like 80 millimeters past the heat sink and then push from there.
I got you.
So you have to have one heck of a purge block, unfortunately, with it. I've tried to print dual extrusion with it once, to be honest, and then I got busy printing the parts for this, and I didn't have enough filament to do it on 5 different printers, so I had the CRX right beside me, and it, admittedly, for $100 and no additional parts to it, it does print better quality and faster than my DaVinci's do at the speeds it does anyway. I can print that thing at 50, the same quality I get on 30 on my DaVinci.
Well, I mean, that's upgraded technology too, though, now.
Yep.
The DaVincis are a little bit older. They're showing their age, kind of like you. I
was gonna say, look who's talking there.
but you are older than me.
By how many months?
I don't know.
When you turn 47, Walter?
September. Yes.
So I'm a whole 6 months older than you.
Oh, yes, that's right. But here's the thing, Carl. When I met you at Murph last year, not this past Murph, but the one before. So, I mean, we were right there beside each other, and I'm still kind of upset with you because you sold me 3 rolls of polycarbonate that are still in the freaking box because I have absolutely nothing to print with polycarbonate.
I told you what you were buying, and you come on at the price you got it for. Like, you can really complain.
Oh, I know. No, the price was great, but I mean, I had no idea.
$14 a kilo
or something like that. But I've never at that time I had never printed anything other than ABS and PLA. I didn't even know about other materials. I didn't know what PTG was at the time.
I've never printed with polycarbonate either. Dave had explained to me what it was. I told you then, I'm like, I'm not sure what you're going to use this for, but it's $14 a kilo. Where can you go wrong with that?
But the thing is, though, I mean, even though we didn't talk that much, I had a good time hanging out with you at Murph, even last year, much more so than this year because I didn't really like you this year.
You didn't see me this year. I saw you opening morning, shook your hand, and I think we passed in the wind maybe 2 more times. I know I waved to the country club once or twice as I was rushing from my booth to my RV and back.
Dude, every time I went over there, it was like a line, and I'm like, nah, I'll talk to him online or something. I'm not waiting in line to talk to Carl. But dude, I am so happy with your progress. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna shift and we're gonna go towards the White Knight now, which is what everybody's here for. But first things first, Matt asked for you to show your maker coin that you printed on your White Knight. He wants to see one of those that you printed. Show one off. You got one on the end there. Just take it off. There you go.
You let that one fall. If we're lucky, it falls before the stream ends.
I hear you. Well, it should. It's rolling pretty good. Sweet. So let me ask you a question. And that looks like the same G code you were printing at Murph. Is that right?
It is. I haven't tweaked it at all. I know it worked. That's why I printed it. I had to tear the printer apart last night to verify something and literally threw it back together for the stream.
Matt just yelled at me and said, no, something other than.
Oh, other than?
Other than.
Well, this is what's printing right now. Printed that sword. I printed that sword.
All right, so those print in halves, right?
Right. The final file we're going to release at some point on a Thingiverse actually has a notch right here, so you could hang it on a screw on the wall, or you could print two, put them together, and have a complete sword.
Matt said he stood there watching you print coins for 2 days. He didn't want to see no damn coins.
Well, if he looks, you can see it printing the handle. Here, I'll change the angle for a second for y'all.
Oh, sweet. So, see, you didn't even pop off your coins. You just went from that to the next STL, right?
Yep.
All right. So, I'm going to go ahead and ask this right quick. Hardman's asking, do you have any big objects like helmet size? Have you done anything that go up in Z higher?
I broke it apart, and I admit it wasn't the best quality, but I was printing at 125 millimeters a second because I wanted to verify that the 430, what I was telling everybody we could print the 430, and I'd never actually printed anything that tall. So that was a 100 millimeter cylinder, 430 millimeters tall, but at that speed, it was rocking and shifting around. I would have needed, and it was literally vase mode, 0.8 nozzle, just to prove it would do it.
Well, see, that's what I was going to ask you. How does that deal with vase mode? You know?
Well, all the coins that printed all of Murph were vase mode.
Okay. Okay.
I said this was vase mode. It all matter of how fast and how heavy the product is, and obviously the wider and heavier you go, the better it looks, just because you're forcing it to hold a shape. And
right.
I think actually bigger stuff will probably print nicer than small stuff. Excuse me.
So is the sword is the longest thing you've printed so far that you've printed personally?
I think I got one. I think actually the inlays that I was printing for Midnight Giants printer, all those inlays were printed in 520 millimeter pieces, and I dremeled them down to fit in the extrusion.
Okay.
And let me see if I can find it real quick.
Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
If you can't tell, the shop is a mess from getting 2 printers built in time for Murph, and I still haven't had a chance to clean up. But I mean, the slide tray for the circuit board assembly, that's printed on it. The peeler that goes across the back, and then both of the covers for that circuit board assembly are all printed on it.
Nice.
The cool thing with the belt printer,
yeah,
I printed it down like this on the bed, just because I wanted nice, adhesion and didn't have to worry about it. But the way it handles overhangs and everything, I literally could have printed just a starter block here, and then I could have printed it just like this down the bed and not had to support any of it.
Right.
I did a test print just for a little while just to see if it would work, and then I'm like, okay, now I want to keep it nice and flat on the bed for a nice smooth surface. But
now that all right. So now that we're on to the White Knight, let's get to it. When did you decide that you wanted to make one? Not when you thought. I mean, because I know Printer Belt went out of business, and the only thing out there is black belts, and they're just friggin' expensive. I get that. But when you saw Printer Belt, was it one of those things when you first saw it that you said, I need to have one of those?
No, and I apologize, Bill Steele, but no. I saw it at Earth, and we looked at it, and I wasn't, I didn't like the look of the cap on tape belt, and I wanted to get a picture. And I've talked with Bill Steele, and he's promised we're going to get the picture at Earth this year. You could fit 2 of that printer belt inside my printer. We were going to take and set his right on the belt and take a picture and show, basically the origin and where it went to. And I was like, in my mind, I was going, the only reason I would want a belt printer would be I want to print huge, you know, and it's what I'm going to get to. It's like, I want to print huge swords and that Skyrim, the Skyrim bow that Sean made. I want to be able to print that, and you know, just I want to. It's like we've been joking about it a little bit, and I think Joel's serious, unfortunately, which means I'm going to have to live up to it. But we've been talking about that Guinness Book of Records that NASA did. They printed 123.7 blah 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 foot long cube, I think it was, in their vacuum space training center out of ABS. The world's longest non-assembled 3D print. And yeah. Mike and I and Joel are all like, we need to prove that my basement build $2,000 don't have a vacuum chamber to print it in printer can beat it. We want to print a 124 or longer piece of just, we were going to do extrusion, so it took doing I was going to just do a 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter, you know, rectangle for 124 feet. And that will take 5 days and about 7 kilos, I think it was, or something like that. So I was going to print a 20 by 40 extrusion so we could cut it up and give it to people. And I'd be like, well, that'll get Walter halfway to building his own White Knight. Right. And till I laid it out, and I said, okay, doing 2040 extrusion and doing 10% infill, 2 perimeters would take 16 days to do the same print, because then I can't do vase mode anymore. Right. We kind of decided that Joel would volunteer Sean Connolly to film it all. We thought Sean would get a little bored after about day 6 and probably leave. So right. Well, now here's the thing in doing that, right? Because filament's not an issue. The only problem is a space to do it. Exactly. Because you really have to have a warehouse, and you have to have rollers and all this stuff. And after so long, I mean, I don't know what the torque is on that belt and the stickiness, but after so long, the weight that it's pushing would become a factor as well. It would. And I said, unfortunately, I can't account for the long friction. But when I first started practicing with this, or the prototype belt was 9 inches wide. I stacked, I think, 12 kilo rolls on it, and started a print. Okay. And I let the print run until the first couple of spools were about to fall off the belt. It had no problem pushing 12 kilos. Well, if you get some decent rollers, though, I mean, it won't be that bad. Right. But, all right. So let's get off the world record. Let's go back to building this thing. So you didn't have any interest in it really at Earth after you saw it last year. So when did you say to yourself, okay, I've got to do this? What was your spark that said, okay, I need to build a belt printer? Well, I said last year at Murph, I met Midnight Giant. We talked a little bit, and then you know where he was at Earth. He was, almost right across from me, and we got into LED wars with our displays and everything else, and got to really talking, and we started collaborating on ideas. I had some great ideas to improve his booth and everything, and he's like, yeah, man. And he's talking about printing his swords and stuff. And I said, how are you printing those? He's like, oh, I'm printing them on my deltas, 8-12 inches at a time. And then I held up the one he gave me, realized he's putting these little pins in. And I'm like, dude, you need a belt printer. He goes, yeah, I know. I was looking at that printer belt. He goes, but it's too small. I'm like, well, I'm sure you could make it bigger. It can't, you've got one. It can't be that hard to stretch the frame and put wider rollers and make it bigger. He goes, dude, we should get one. You seem to know what you're talking about. Maybe you can take it apart, make one bigger for me. I'm like, okay. And then we started watching, about the same time we said that, Pooch started doing his assembly video. Right. And I started watching Pooch try to put this thing together. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? Because I'm looking at all the parts, and I don't want to insult Pooch, but he looked lost trying to put it together the first night. I think he got a little better by the second, but the amount of parts in that kit, I think, overwhelmed him, and it was overwhelming me just watching on the video. Right. And then, the second or third video, they announced that Printer Belt was out of business. Oh, wow. And Mike messages me and goes, okay, so I didn't buy one. Did you buy one? I said, nope. And Joel was talking how he got the last one. And we're like, well, Mike saw, man, you seem like you had an idea. You don't think you can make one of those? I'm like, I don't know. I imagine I could probably figure out a way. I mean, what? It's just take a printer and slap it on a 45-degree axis and figure out how to make it print on a belt, right? He's like, he goes, you make it sound so simple. Do it. And I was like, okay, sure. And I pulled up. You can barely see what's left of it. I had bought that 500 by 500 D-Bot from David Randolph at Printed Solid. And I had already downloaded the files. I didn't like the ugly looking gray he had. I've actually got all the pieces printed in high 5 to reassemble it. And I was like, I wonder if I can take that D-Bot and chop it up and tilt it on a 45 and make it work. And I've opened up 3D Builder, started pulling in D-Bot files, and that's what I ended up with.
All right. So my question though, so you didn't look at the printer bot because it was open source, right? The printer belt. You didn't look at that for.
I didn't look at their files. I looked at it as much as I saw, as much as the 5-10 minutes I got to look at it at Earth.
Now, what about the firmware? Because you have to change some things in firmware, right?
Not really.
No,
it's all really handled in the slicing. And that I've said it before. I want to say it again just to be clear. It's like Black Belt releases all their software to the public free of charge. I think I'm assuming, and part of it is open source, which is why they do. But they maintain it. They're making a great program for slicing for a belt printer. And every time I've had any issues, I've gone out on their forum, and they've been nothing but helpful and supportive in me making another belt printer.
Oh wow. Okay.
But yeah, it's a standard Core XY, and then when you go into the slicing software is where it gets tricky, because in the slicing software, like this is the Z-axis, and everybody goes, Z-axis isn't horizontal, Z-axis is vertical.
Yeah.
If you told the slicing software that the belt was Z, the belt would go straight through the bottom of your screen into infinity.
Right.
And for a person used to using a printing software, you want to see your print sitting on the bed in front of you on the screen. So I guess Black Belt had the common sense to turn around and say, well, we got to make it appeal to the eye so it's easy for people to use the slicing program and see their prints setting in front of them, not going down the bottom of the screen out of sight. So they set it to be the Y-axis in the software is your infinite access.
Right.
Axis. But when it slices it, it flips all the Y and Z commands.
I got you.
So you see it visually as the Y-axis going into infinity on the slicer, but it tells it it's the Z-axis when it prints.
Okay, well, I mean, that makes sense. That's a good deal. That was one of my biggest things. I'm like, okay, so this is running basically standard Marlin then, is that right?
Rep Rat, because I'm running the Duet.
Oh, you are running Duet. That's right. So how do you account for that size in Z in Rep Rat firmware, though? That's my question. Because it asks you how tall your printer is, right, for Z.
999999999.
Oh, okay. So you just put it
you put nines in it till it throws that little E infinity thing or whatever in the corner, and that's where I stop. I'm sure there actually is a limit, but it's beyond 999,999.
Right. I got you. Okay. All right. Well, that was one of my biggest things. I'm like, okay, so Karl designed this, which is a feat unto itself, but then you've got the software considerations and the slicer. And I was wondering about the slicer because I know that Printer Belt, he did something similar to what the Black Belt guys did. Is that right?
From what I understand, Bill Steele actually wrote a plugin years ago for Cura, and I think he even wrote it for, I could be wrong on this, but I think he actually wrote the plugin to work with all the common slicers at the time. So there's probably one for Slick 3R and Simplified 3D and whatever other ones might have been out there. And then this is why I think Black Belt still releases it, because his plugin was open source. They took that, incorporated, and just built on it since then.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I said, I may be wrong, but that's what I've pieced together from conversations with him. I haven't, need to say, Black Belt has been very helpful, but they're not big on giving out any details on anything.
Oh no, they want to sell $10,000 printers, so
Exactly.
of course they would.
I don't blame them one bit. They've chosen to go after the commercial industrial market, and it's working for them. Why mess with a good thing?
Oh, that's exactly right. Got two questions from the chat right now that I'm going to go ahead and get to. You're working on a smaller one?
The plan is to scale this down, and everybody laughs because I say I'm going to scale it down to 57% of size. And the reason I'm going to scale it to 57% is I have a spool of shim stock that weighs about 50 pounds.
Yeah.
That I got from my uncle when he closed down his machine shop that I got no use for until I started building belt printers. Then I discovered, hey, I have a use for that. But there's enough there to probably make 100 belt printers. I figure I may, for those that want to do it themselves, if they, when I get to where I've scaled it down, I may go ahead and just try and, cut slices of it off and sell it dirt cheap and get rid of it and, make something out of it.
Well, since you have a belt printer, you could print me every piece that I need for that, right? Except the rails.
Yes, I do. I know that.
All right. I'm still waiting on those to come in a box.
I thought you told me you wanted to make a real one and then print a bigger one yourself.
No, you print me one and then I'll make a better one after I get it.
All right. I've got time to get that done before Earth.
Yeah, I know.
But if I do that, you have to bring the printed one to Earth.
I'm not gonna guarantee that because I really want to get the Stargate done before Earth. I really want to get that diorama done before Earth is what I want to do.
And I'm looking behind you there. I don't know where you would put a printer this big behind you.
I got a whole nother room. Remember, I have a whole nother room over here to my side. So
you're gonna move all those printers into the other room to make room for this?
No, I'll put that in the other room, a printed version of that in the other room, because printed printers.
If you do that, you're going to have like a dedicated white night cam in the corner of your streams all the time because everybody's going to want to see it.
Oh yeah, they will. And Shay Street said you could do that long print with synced rollers. You could sync the rollers to the speed of your belt. That way there wouldn't be any friction. But then you've got the cost of synced rollers.
Exactly. I'm going to be lucky to find enough rollers to support a 124-foot print. Uncle Ron put out a thing on Twitter a couple of days ago going, anybody got an empty aircraft hangar? I've got a couple cutoff rollers I can donate. All we need is another 100 people to donate theirs, and we'll have enough to do the print.
Well, really and truly, all you'd have to do is open your window wide enough to let the print go out the window, and just put the rollers outside. It's not going to hurt the print if it gets wet.
I'm more worried about somebody bumping it, a bird landing on it, good strong breeze. When you do I don't know if you saw that we took a 40 by 8 foot long spiralized extrusion with us to Murph. And
right.
We did have a small issue printing it at the time. We haven't had a replicate since it where it didn't seal the top layer real well. It was very brittle.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to Build It for the $5. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you very much.
You're gonna forward that to me, right?
No. Mr. Buttram asks, how many continuous objects have you sliced for one print? So like, put this one and further on down the Y and blah, blah, blah. How many different prints?
I actually haven't experimented with doing different ones yet. The most I've done is the file I did for Murph. I had it printing 10, where just because you have options. You can lay a bunch of different things in black belt cure. You can lay a bunch of different things on the belt, or you can tell it print 10 of something and it'll slice it accordingly.
Right. Buttram saying you could build the rollers. So you could actually print your own rollers.
I could do that.
And build them using 608 bearings and GT2 pulley and belts. That way they're just synced up.
If I could figure out a way to cut the extrusion while it was going out, but then it would kind of defeat the purpose of going for the record. But I mean, we could actually print the rollers in one long roller and just keep slicing it off and make more as I go. It'd be like a self-supporting print. Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't work though. Wouldn't work for the record book. It would work for your roller.
No, it would. I would just every so often I have to cut some off, but I'd end up printing probably double the record
Oh, right.
Get the record.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Sean Gould come up with the same thing. He's like, punch a hole in the side of the trailer with rollers set up outside. And then somebody said a squirrel might get on it. So, you know.
Well, somebody had a really good idea, but it probably would quadruple the cost of going for the record. Was like, just print it in flexible. Who cares if it's supported then? Let it roll right off the end and coil up on the ground and then stretch it out for Guinness.
Well, that'll work. You know, why not?
But I hate to think what 7 kilos of flexible would cost to print that record.
Well, what you could do though is you could print one of those print in place like chains, so that it's all linked together. But when you break it loose, it kind of gets loose, so it would just pile up.
Yeah,
and then you could just.
I don't know if they call that one continuous assembled part though.
Yeah, I don't know either, but smarter men than me. So, but anyway, all right. So you designed it in 3D Builder. You build it. So what makes it different from Printer Bot, as far as parts wise, complexity? What makes it different?
Hard to say detail wise. Like I said, I never really dived into the printer belt to look at what the main differences are. But size wise, I think they were running on a 150, maybe 200 by 200 XY and the unlimited Z. This is 400 by 430. I think from what I pieced together, they were printing on Cap-on tape. This is a hardened stainless steel sheet with build tack. I'm not sure what they were using for their XY axis. This here's linear rail, so it's basically a rail core belt. I'm definitely using a different hot end than they were. I forget what you call that big hot end that they use, but this is using the Mosquito hot end. I mean, I tried to pull all the top of the line brands into this thing.
All right. Well, let me ask you this, because this is something I was going to ask you earlier. So you have a hardened steel belt. Okay.
Yep.
That's not one piece, is it? It is one piece, but you had to splice the ends of it together.
It's not seamless.
Right.
Though I am working to get a seamless version. Hopefully we can get a good enough price where we can make that part of the production when it comes out in kit, where it actually be a seamless stainless.
All right. So how did you connect your steel together for your belt?
Aluminum duct tape.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then I offset the build tack by another foot. So you've got the tape holding it together long enough for the build tack to adhere to it. So then the build tack's adding like a secondary layer to help hold it together.
Okay. So, but the ends of the build tack, it's not one continuous piece either, or
nope.
It's not seamless either. So
no, that is when I get the belt is 1,920 millimeters long. The build tack sheet is a full 2 meters. So I've got 80 millimeters of excess.
Okay.
I literally overlap those 80 millimeters, and then so you're not trying to fold the whole build tack sheet over the roller at the same time. I cut it at a diagonal across that 80 millimeters. So you're starting at a narrow point and then spreading all the way across the belt.
No, I get you. Okay. All right. So, I mean, you worked all this out, and it makes a pretty seamless design. Is that right?
You can barely see the seam in it. And unfortunately, no matter how hard I try to make it perfectly flush, I always run into issues. If I make it too tight, then it wants to push like this at the seam from constantly going in and around the rollers. Or if I make it too wide, then yeah, you can see the little silver stripe. But when you print, I don't know if I have one here. Yeah, you can. On my test belt, I had a straight seam, and you might be able to see the line right here.
Not really, because of camera.
You get one faint line in it that if you're printing something for production, it's like, okay, darn, you got to take and sand that one little line out. But
all right, so now difference between this and a normal printer. You've got 2 stepper motors on this, right? Or 3 if you count the extruder, because it's got 2 Z, or is it just 1 Z?
You've got the 5-to-1 gear down that's driving the belt.
Okay, but is that a stepper motor though? I didn't know that you had stepper motors on the belt.
Yep, that's a standard E3D 5-to-1 gear down stepper.
Okay. All right.
And it's geared even further because I got a 20 tooth feeding a 60 tooth on the roller, so it's it's got torque for days.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. And then the rest of them are standard, right? X, Y, or X and Z.
X, Y, and extruder are all just standard E3. Well, on this one are the E3D small but powerful, and on the one Mike has, it's the same equivalent in the LDO stepper.
Okay. All right. And speaking of filament sponsors for the world record print, Sean just showed up. So, like I said, we have filament to print with. It's not a problem if we want to go set the world record. I'll tell you what, I might drive.
I've had a few companies offer to help me with the filament for that.
Oh, have they?
I know Joel was nothing against Sean. I love Sean, and if IC3D's got a big enough warehouse, we could probably do it in there. I know Joel. I think Joel really just wants to get the printer out on the West Coast so he can play with it. But he's pushing for me to do it at Protopasta, and I can't complain because, well, both of them were made in Protopasta. They were more than happy to help out with all the filament or a good portion of the filament for the second printer. So,
well, I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. You go out with Joel and you go with Protopasta and you set the world record at 144 feet, right? And then we're going to go to Ohio and we're going to
do it again.
IC3D and we're going to set it at 154 feet. So yes, we can make sure. And then if you really are nice, I will put you up for 2 weeks while you're down here. We'll set it at 200 damn feet here at my house.
Well, it's a shame the Orlando Maker Faire isn't like 5 days long. We could set it during Orlando Maker Faire.
Hey, you'd have to up your print speed a bit too. The thing about it is, though, if you really think about it, you really could, because it's just continuous print. It doesn't have to be a design.
Yeah. The trick is, like I said, when I slice it, I set it 50 millimeters a second. And I'll have to play with it as to how fast can I really pump out that cube before it doesn't get good layer adhesion and just, it can't keep up. And I haven't even put the Magnum on it yet. This is still the regular Mosquito.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, do you really have to like make a cube, or do you just need to extrude filament for that long? I mean, what's the criteria for being a print?
I don't know for sure. I know that's what NASA did. It would look like a cube, or long square cylinder, whatever you want to call it. Or square tube. But I would imagine it has to stay together is the trick. Go too small, too light, too thin, might not get it pushed out that whole 124 feet before it falls apart.
Right. All right. So listen, we've only got about 6 minutes left. Believe it or not, I told you this would go fast, and you don't realize how fast that hour goes. But we need some questions in the chat. So y'all ask Karl your questions, and I'll try to get to them as best I can. What's up, Info Mario? Hadn't seen you in a while, buddy. So we do need some more questions for there. Yeah, and there you go. Lester said use rounded corners, and it would speed up your print substantially.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
So, yeah, and I'm sure it will, because it never has to really stop movement for the corners.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that.
So now let's talk about this kit that you're working on with Printed Solid. What do you have any type of timeline for?
There's nothing set in stone enough yet that I'm willing to put out there.
Oh, no, I get that. I understand that. Y'all, I mean, but y'all are working on it, but you're having to source parts.
Having to source parts. We have to make sure that we're not violating any copyrights. That's the big thing right now, is making sure that there isn't anything out there that's going to come back and bite us later. And working on assembly instructions and determining what are we going to put in the kit, what aren't we going to put in the kit. Is it just going to be the extrusions, or are we going to go all out and say, yeah, here's the steppers, here's the harness? All that still has to be kind of set out and determined yet.
Yeah. Well, my question. There's Midnight Giant. What's up, Mike? How are you? My biggest thing about kits is it's the same reason that I ordered the printed parts whenever I got my MMU2S upgrade for my Prusa. I want the whole damn thing. I don't want to open a kit and go, okay, now I've got to buy motors. Now I've got to buy limit switches. Now I want a kit. when I buy a kit, it doesn't matter if it's a $2,500 or $2,600 kit. I want it to print when I'm done putting it together, and I don't want to have to source anything myself. Now, it could be a great offering. Say, hey, here's all your printed parts. Here's all your, extrusions, nuts, bolts, rails, all that stuff. Now go buy the motors. This is what you got to have, because I'm sure in a kit that's complete, you would want to have, good grade components, so you're not getting them back every week either,
Right. I'm pretty sure, knowing David Randolph as well as I know him, I'm sure his goal is to, I'm sure he's going to try and source the entire thing and have it to where it's here you go. The only thing he probably will not include would be the printed parts, unless somebody really said, no, we want printed parts too. And that's a whole nother discussion as to, printing and sending the printed parts.
The thing is with those though, I mean, how many printed parts are there actually on the machine?
I believe, from what I've never actually counted them all, but I believe looking at the Github today, Gustner mentioned something about all 44 parts have been converted. So I'm going to say there's 44 parts on there.
Okay, so there's 44 parts. All right, so how many of those? Oh, wait, you don't run out of room. So you could model those so you print one printer right after the other on a printer belt and run it 24 hours a day.
Possibly.
Well, you're supposed to print me one. So, I mean, you got to be able to print them, right?
Well, like I said, I always figured it's going to be nice because I admit, I kind of look forward to printing your extrusions, because it'll be the first one of these I've built that I haven't had to sit there with a Dremel and a file and a skill saw to cut the openings for that slide tray. When I make yours, I'm going to model the openings in it to where it's going to come off ready for wiring and slide tray. No filing required.
Well, that's great. But I mean, like I said, I don't mind buying the motors, and I've got a set of linear rails. I don't know that they're tall enough to do that. I have
700.
How many? Yeah, I don't have 700 linear rails. I think I've got like 310s or something.
That's not even wide enough for the x-axis.
Yeah, I know. That's why you need to print me one of the smaller ones. 57%. I think I can do that. I have the rails for that already. Sean does have a question. It is open source. You can get all the files and the BOM at this point, right?
Correct.
GitHub.
Correct.
All right. Now, Carl is going to send me the link to GitHub because I don't have that. He's going to email that to me. It will be in the description after this video is over, and Carl sends it to me. He's working on it now. See, look, he got him started already. You can paste it in the chat too, Carl, I believe.
That's what I was going to do.
Here's an odd question for Carl, kind of inspired by me. Could someone print a night? Well, yes, you could. And I'm actually going to copy this right now. Copy link address. And if I go back over to the info and settings, I can put that in the description right now while I'm thinking about it. Oh, wow. That's not right. That's wrong. That didn't copy the link. Yeah, it did. Hold on. I got to open it in a window and just get the link because it did all the YouTube redirect stuff.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah. So that is a great question by Ray's ID. You can actually print a complete night now, right? Like you could like turn mine on the side and put some supports under it and print the heck out of the Sir Walters a lot, right? Or Sir Country a lot, whatever it is.
You mean this guy? He's always watching.
That guy.
You could, I'd have to play. I mean, I would probably slice him at least in half, depending on how big I wanted to go. I actually want to see if I can't get a whole suit of armor designed up with like the sword in front for being like a card holder at the stand that I could print that would be the like 7 feet tall. But I figured I'd have to slice it at least in half all the way down and print one half and then the other half and then slap the two halves together just so I don't have to worry about doing any kind of supports.
Well, now, okay, so the questions aren't coming, so we're just going to sit here and chat. We got, if nobody has any questions, our stream is over. But I do have a question about that, slicing it in half. The problem is the width then becomes an issue because you can't like scale it to my height because of the width. Right?
It's a matter of how many chunks you cut it into. I said I'm restricted to 16 inches wide, and set what I don't know how much 30 millimeters is, but roughly 17 inches tall.
I got you.
So whatever you can fit in that swath is tall as you want to make it. And if you go wider than that, well, then you cut it into fourths and just print your fourths and then glue them together.
I got you. And Ray's ID said close, but not quite what he meant. He meant could it print the printer?
Oh, yeah, everything but the extrusions and well, if you weren't going to put a heater on it, you could print the build plate probably even. I don't know how well it would support itself.
But you can print the extrusions.
Yeah, easily.
I know you can. All right, so
yes, Walter, I'm catching all your hints to print your extrusions.
No, I want the whole damn thing in a box. I told you all the plastic parts, every one of them.
Every one of them. It took me to print all the parts for mics. I'll get you
the filament. Don't worry about that. You don't worry about filament. Shay Street said, how heavy is it?
I haven't put on a scale. I would estimate around 50, give or take, pounds.
About 50 pounds. Okay. Andrew S. come in, said, how many attempts did it take to get it right? What iteration are you on?
Depends on which part, but here, if you want an example. This whole box is full of attempts.
Sweet.
Different revisions, getting the belts lined up right, realizing I needed to add a bracket or a block somewhere.
Okay, next question. How much of I'm going to ask this in a way, Hardman asked a certain question, but I'm going to ask, you're not heating the whole belt, right? You're only heating the first portion of it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so once it leaves there, it's kind of cooling off on the bottom until it gets around to the separator, right?
Correct.
So now what if you're printing something for Midnight Giant, like a sword that he wants 5 foot long, so it has to be supported and come straight off the end? You don't want that adhesion to carry that blade around that curve. So can you move your separator up any? Do you have that available on your design so you can move it up?
That was the reason we printed the that long 8-foot piece. What you can't see is because these pieces are so small that they tend to roll with it. When you get a really long piece like this here, and you're moving this belt so slow, it literally will leave the belt right here.
Okay.
It'll start to pull off the first little bit, and then once enough of it's out there, it's got some tension against it, it'll just lift up, and then it'll keep going straight right out the end. It'll never actually make it down to here.
Right. Well, Mike answered Shay's question about tension on the belt. He said there's not much tension on the belt, but Build It asked the question, even with the diagonal cut, does it still show up in your print like it did with the first one that you showed us?
It all depends on how big of a surface you have on it. You're always going to see a slight spot because the seam does have a slight gap. So when you're going across, it's always, to get decent bed adhesion, you're always over extruding slightly on that bottom layer because every layer is a bottom layer on a belt printer. There's where people get confused because you're literally doing bottom layer and then all the way to your top layer and back down all the way and bottom layer again on every single layer of it. You're going across that belt. So when you hit that seam at some point, you've got 2 meters to print with. If you set it up right, I usually start right behind the seam. So I'm going 2 meters before I even have to worry about hitting that seam.
Right.
But if you print a 3 meter long sword that's this wide, eventually you will have a diagonal line across the bottom of that sword where it oozed into that crack. The nice thing is a diagonal, you've only got a very thin section on each layer that's actually hitting it, so you don't have to worry about it all of a sudden. Like when you do it straight across, you run the risk when you come down that one whole layer doesn't adhere because you drop into that opening. By doing it at an angle, you've only got a small, like 1/8 of an inch that you have to worry about with each layer.
I got you. All right, so now I have a question for Carol, even though I have the answer. Carol, what the heck is that red thing on the floor? And that's from Sean, by the way.
Red thing on the floor?
Yeah, that you're catching parts in?
Oh, it's just a bowl.
I knew that, but
you saw this at Earth.
Yeah.
Polyalchemy bowl.
I can't believe it doesn't break apart whenever it lands in it.
You saw when Joel did the brackets. Polyalchemy will rip. If I pulled on it this way, I could break it apart. It's very strong when you're not trying to pull apart the layer lines, especially when you lay it down with a 1.2 millimeter nozzle. The thicker you lay it, the tougher it is. It's almost like it's got flexible built into it. It's some tough stuff. You grab a regular piece of PLA and try to break it, it'll break. You can fold a piece of polyalchemy back and forth 5 or 6 times before it'll finally snap.
Yeah. Well, Mitch said it's a Devo hat, so I have to agree with Rich there. Okay. All right. So do you have, well, first let me ask Andrew this question. And Andrew, he answered this a little bit earlier with using the black belt printer slicer. It handles all that for you. But have you sliced anything in Cura or any other slicer for this, Carl?
Well, the black belt is Cura, but okay. I haven't tried using any other slicers out there, and I haven't tried to see if you can configure regular Cura to work with it. From what I've pieced together, the few times I have talked with the black belt guys, supports and everything are not generated the same way you would generate them with a regular slicer. So I can't imagine doing anything but very basic slices with a normal slicer, and without the plug-in would be very successful.
Okay. And Matt Snow, Inside the Mind of Matt, asked, do you have any time lapses of a long print?
I do not yet. That's definitely on my list of. The trick is I'm still trying to figure out the best place to mount a camera, because unfortunately, when you have unlimited Z, eventually sooner or later something's always going to be out of frame.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, you could like put it right, like through the little triangle there. Just watch it print as it goes down, but do it like I did. I did the entire trip from here to Ohio and Indiana and back in time lapse. And that was the entire trip minus about 200 miles on my first night. So
yeah, I definitely want to get one. It's like I was literally just rushing to get everything done. I actually did time lapses of every other part on this printer on the CRX. The only parts that weren't time lapse were the ones that I printed on the belt printer, which were the peeler and the long covers and the tray and stuff, because I wanted them to be in one piece. I released files for most of it in 3-piece, but all that I wanted it to be one nice piece for the show.
I got you. And Ronnie Julian says that you should partner with a supplier for your belts. He worked at Georgia Duck Belts. Strange name, good company.
I'll keep that in mind.
Georgia Duck Belts.
Georgia Duck Belts.
Might be nice to have a camera posted above the extruder block. That way you see the piece as it grows.
Yeah, it was either put it like right here somewhere.
Right.
Or put it all the way down at the other end, looking at so that the print would come toward the camera at some point.
Oh, there you go. Just wait till the end of the print, or right at the very end of the print on the belt, and let it roll with the print as it comes out.
That would work.
Yeah. That would actually be pretty cool, actually. Good job, Mitch.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get to see that one pop off before we get done here.
What? How much further we got?
It looks like it's still got another inch of print to go.
Probably not. How long is that in print time?
Probably 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, probably not going to be here for that. We're at the end of our show. We've been over 11 minutes, and we don't have any more questions. So if you want to, man, just tell them again where they can find you online. What are the things coming up with the White Knight? What's coming that they need to know?
All right. Well, like you said, pretty much I'm Knack 3D Designs on everything. Knack 3D Designs on Twitter. Knack 3D Designs, and that's NAK 3D Designs. On YouTube, the GitHub is Knack 3D Designs / The White Knight, or well, without the. Look for hopefully here in the very near future more information on the kit release with printed solid. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully by ERF, I've got a scaled down 230 by 230 version of this. We're going to call the Squire. And I have no, and I've had a few people ask me, what am I going to build next when I'm done building belt printers? And I have no idea.
Yeah, just live with that one. I'm going to tell you right now. Just live with
it. Like, I have to top this next. I'm like, how do I top that? I don't know.
All right. Well, Andrew S. did throw a quick question in there, and it's a good question, so I want to get to it. The heater for this, it's an aluminum plate with a silicone heater underneath the belt. Is that correct?
It's actually underneath the plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a 3/8 inch thick aluminum plate with a 200 by 400 silicone heater just adhered to the bottom of it.
Okay. That's what I thought. I mean, there's no heater stuck to the belt. It's just a plate that heats the belt.
Yeah, it's just a plate, and you contact heat against, radiant heat basically up through the stainless.
Right. So, all right. So it's either Knack 3D or Naked Designs, if you will, because, it's just what it is. I thought that's what it was.
You almost made it through a whole stream without calling me that, Walter.
For the first year of our knowing each other, I thought it was Naked Designs, and then he explained that it's not. It's Natasha and Karl 3D Designs. And I got a question though. How much does Natasha actually design, or does she go, no, that doesn't look good, Dad, do it again?
That's pretty much. She's good at helping pick out color combos, and she's sketched up a few things. She wants to try and make a scythe for a cosplay costume. And last year at ERF, somebody got her hooked on Fusion a little bit, and a week after we left ERF, it kind of dwindled away. And Murph, she got kind of back into it. We'll see how long it takes before it dwindles away again. But she likes to come down every once in a while and make funny guest appearances. That's about it.
All right, Karl, I'm gonna swap it back over to me. Tell these guys bye, and then I'll be back with you as soon as I cut us off the air. All right, buddy?
All right. I'll see you, everybody.
All right, guys, that's the interview with Karl from Knack 3D Designs. The White Knight printer is a fantastic thing, but Karl as a person is a good guy too, man. I mean, really is. If you ever get a chance to hang around with Karl, he's an excellent person to hang around with and talk with, and he's a good dad to his daughter, which is awesome to me. Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate the Country Club's involvement. And if you have any other questions, hit him up on Twitter. It's Knack 3D. I think Knack 3D Designs, or just Knack 3D on. I got his link in the description. Y'all go get it. I don't know. I've got him as a friend, so I just start typing and it shows up. But thank y'all for being here. Appreciate it. And we will see you Sunday on Fun in the Country Basement. That's funcountrybasement.com. You can find it there. It'll be 4 to 6 on Sunday. Thank y'all all for watching, and we will see you the next time. Peace out, Country Club.